All right. Welcome to episode 64 of the Jake Blanchard podcast, brought to you in part by our friends at Stream to See. They were voted the #1 mineral-based sunscreen by Rolling Stone magazine. They're out there changing the world, not just to help to preserve our rivers, lakes, and oceans, but also keeping all that junk that your skin absorbs in traditional sunscreen out of your body. Check them out at streamtosea.com. That's STREAM, the number 2, SEA.com. Podcast listeners using the code JBP at checkout. Get yourself 10% off. And then also our longtime sponsor, Fellowship Brand, premium men's grooming products. Go to fellowshipbrand.com. Again, that code JBP at checkout gets you 10% off of the best organic balms and butters and oils for the hair on your face. They've got a tattoo balm too. It's fantastic. Fellowshipbrand.com. My guest today is the one and only Elias Anderson. He's the son of a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. And he was raised on the mats, knowing at a young age that jiu-jitsu would become his passion in life. He's been aspiring to be great, not just as an athlete, but as a human being as well. He's an open-minded guy. He has an open heart. And that's been the key to his development as a martial artist. I'm excited today to talk about his journey into jiu-jitsu, his journey into the world of combat jiu-jitsu. And then currently he is the 135-pound champion in combat jiu-jitsu. My man, Elias Anderson, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you for the introduction, Jake. It's good to be here.
Yeah, of course. Hey, we got to meet each other, I don't know, a couple months ago, something like that.
Yeah, in Boise, or whatever it was.
You dropped into Boise. We got an opportunity to train a little bit together, just a roll or two, just kind of rolling around. You surely beat me up in the most gentle way possible. You really got to open my eyes again to how much there is left for me to learn in the world of jiu-jitsu, man. But where are you at today? Are you down in Reno right now? Are you in Cali? Like, what's your geography?
I'm based in Reno right now. So I live out here in Reno, train out here. I train and teach at Renzo Gracie affiliate here in Reno. It's just Renzo Gracie Reno. We got an awesome squad down there. The head instructor is amazing, Max Magar, really solid instructor, and my current coach, teacher. I've learned a lot from him so far. And yeah, it's just been a great space for my jiu-jitsu, for my learning. And I don't know if Reno's like the end goal, the place I want to be, but as of right now, it's a good spot, and I'm really appreciating it.
Oh, for sure, man. Are you dealing with a bunch of those fires that we're dealing with on the West Coast down in Reno too? Or are you guys out of that?
Yeah, dude, it was pretty gnarly for the last few days. I was checking the air quality reports every day, and it was like the AQI was getting up to the 200s, and then even past it. Super unhealthy. But just yesterday, it started to really clear up. I was actually able to take my dog out for a run again, which was nice, but she was like cooped up. But yeah, it's clearing up now, which is nice. But it was bad for a few days there. You guys are getting it over there?
Oh, dude, it's been frustrating at best, man. It's just, it's just always kind of looming over you. Anytime that smoke, you just can't see far out into the distance. And I've been trying to run a lot more, and I run a couple miles, man. I just get gassed out. Like I kind of feel it in my nose and my lungs and whatnot. So it's probably not the best thing to be huffing and puffing a whole bunch of that outside. Yeah. So most of my training's been indoors lately.
Good. Yeah, I stay out of that. I don't want to be in there.
Well, dude, per the intro, I talked about an early age. You've been around the world of jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general. Maybe kind of take me through that. Like, what was it like having a family that is involved in martial arts? And, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. Growing up, I just had always known that my dad did jiu-jitsu. He started jiu-jitsu in the 90s. He lived in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, training with the Gracie family. He kind of went on this whole martial arts search when he was younger, like kind of before him and my mom had me. He went to Japan, looking for good judo, good martial arts out there, and then eventually he went to Brazil and was out there training with the Gracie family, and obviously fell in love with jiu-jitsu and just, how real of a combat sport that it is. Um, and yeah, the rest was history. He started like training there. He became, um, he was belted under them, and eventually moved to LA, where he taught for the Gracies at their first original school, their US school in Torrance, California. And then I was born out in California, right there in Redondo Beach. And yeah, that's kind of where it all began. I was like born into the jiu-jitsu realm, and we ended up moving around a lot. We didn't stay in LA, but wherever we went, my dad was either opening a school or teaching jiu-jitsu somewhere. Um, and yeah, I grew up on the mats, and it was just, something that I did. I didn't even think about it as, oh, this is, I do jiu-jitsu or something. I was just like,
It's
this is what I
woven into
do.
the fabric of your life, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm doing jujitsu, and then the rest of
exactly.
life I consider.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I remember, at one point my dad was, he got to the point, because he like wanted us to do jiu-jitsu. He was like, they have to, they have to train. It was me and my brother, and we had to train, we had to learn it. And I think my mom got into his head at one point and was like, hey, like, let them explore other things, like, if they want to. And my dad finally, when we were a little younger, was like, hey, if you guys want to do other sports or something. And my brother and I were like, wait, that's possible? We can do that. We can like go do other things.
It's
And then like I think we took that and ran with it a little too much, because like my brother stopped doing jiu-jitsu for a little while when we were younger. I got involved in soccer, and I wanted to do other things, but all of that was short-lived. My dad being still involved, teaching and wanting us to come to practice and whatnot. It was inevitable that it was gonna become, our passion, and something that we'd end up focusing on and trying to be really good at.
Well, and
So
if my research serves me correctly, your pops was one of the first American born black belt. Maybe talk to me about that, because I was doing my research, and there's like this dirty dozen kind of
yeah,
thing that comes up, and
yeah.
maybe talk a little bit more about that, just for folks who don't know.
Right, yeah. So the first 12 American black belts are referred to as the Dirty Dozen. Um, my there's some speculation on like who's exactly in there, but if you ask like the right people, around that time, guys like Richard Bressler, um, real important figure in American Jiu-Jitsu. He just came out with a book, kind of detailing, jiu-jitsu coming to America at that time, the Gracie family like coming to America, starting their first original school in Torrance. Richard Bressler, he's awesome. Um, but yeah, if you ask the right people, everyone knows. My dad was one of those first 12 American black belts. He was given his black belt by Fabio Santos at the time, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I was just at the gym the other day, and sometimes my dad's reputation precedes him. I don't really know like who knows him, because he's
Yeah.
so like he's old school, in terms of jiu-jitsu. But I was sitting down with a student, and just kind of like we were introducing ourselves and talking, and I was like, oh yeah, my dad, lol. He's like, oh, I know your dad. And I was like, you do? I was like, that's weird. Like, I guess if you're like into the jiu-jitsu history and whatnot, and you're looking it up, and then also just being in this area, we've been around here for a little while, so
Yeah. So
kind of cool.
I love it, man. And so this is the thing that you do in life right now. I mean, you said you teach. That's what you do full time, from a
Yeah.
professional standpoint, and then you train to compete. So talk to me about the things that you're currently competing in, like what divisions, what weights, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So teaching is great. I've got a really good opportunity there at Henzo Gracie Reno, teaching for an incredible group of students. We've got a great program. And then, yeah, I'm competing anywhere from like 135 to 155. I want to compete in. I keep my weight, right around 140s. And so I stay there. So cutting to 135 is not too bad. and then moving up to 45, 55, it's just like, it's always within the realm of possibility. Um, yeah, I've got I competed in combat jiu-jitsu worlds, and then, I took some time, and then I did like some local sub only stuff in the Bay Area. And then other than that, I've just been training, prepping, preparing, I, I train with like a very like, competitive mentality. I put myself in those, visual positions, like I'm going to be competing on the next big stage, or something's going to happen. Um, and as of right now, I actually just got asked to fill in for someone at the Emerald City Invitational, for the 145-pound championship. Um, and it's all Flow Grappling's top 10 ranked guys. So they got a bunch of top 10 ranked competitors in there. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think it's another opportunity for me to, show the level that I'm at. I think I got a lot more, just respect from my peers from the jiu-jitsu community after, winning the combat jiu-jitsu title. And now I feel like this gives me another opportunity on a big stage on Flow Grappling, against ranked competitors to show the level that I'm at. So
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited.
Well, let's draw some lines here between competing in grappling or traditional jujitsu competitions versus combat jujitsu. And could you unpack combat jujitsu a little bit? Maybe give a little bit of origin story here, and then take us through the differences and the uniqueness that that new sport brings.
Yeah. So combat jiu-jitsu was developed by Eddie Bravo, and he before combat jiu-jitsu, he was doing all the EBIs, and the Eddie Bravo invitationals were very highly respected competitions, and cream of the crop in jiu-jitsu would be in there competing for the EBI titles. I can't remember the last EBI he did, but eventually he moved over to combat jiu-jitsu. Him and Victor Davila, his good friend, partner, they decided it would be a cool element to add palm strikes to jiu-jitsu. So now you're focusing on grappling, but you have the you have to watch out for palm strikes, and it doesn't have to just be a slap. It can be like an open palm, like basically punch to your nose or your face. So it can be really violent. They still wanted to separate it from MMA. They just the idea was to make jujitsu more realistic, to see what really works in a combat situation. So
What do
the
you
palm strikes are like the one opponent has to be grounded. We can't just stand there and start trading palm strikes. We have to start
Okay.
doing jiu-jitsu. So an opponent has to be grounded, and then the strikes can be landed. But yeah, the idea is still to submit and to win.
So like how does that change your strategy going into it? Like what does the danger of an open hand strike like nullify in the world of jujitsu? Like kind of what goes out the window, or what do you have to be like very purposeful or specific about?
I think I think people just think more about their positioning, and certain submissions that you're going for. Um, yeah, I guess you don't realize, like, just being on bottom and playing guard, how open you are to just getting punched in the head. And so it actually kind of forces you to react quicker, to move quicker through, certain positional hierarchies in jiu-jitsu, or just to the next move, to start chaining your moves together a little quicker. Because if I'm going to play guard, right, if I'm like an inside De La Hiva position, someone can just rain down on me. So I got to move, right? I got to go to the next move. I'm either going like kiss of the dragon, or cutting into a leg entanglement or something. But I know, that I've got to kick it into the next gear. I can't just stay there and get slapped. And I think one thing I really appreciate about it is the fact that there's less stalling. People aren't like stalling in positions, and if they are, they're getting hit. And so it really forces you to uh, do your jiu-jitsu and apply finishing techniques, positional dominance in jiu-jitsu. And that's ultimately what people want to see. People want, when people tune into a jiu-jitsu event, they want to see jiu-jitsu. They don't want to see stalling. They don't want to see, I mean, they don't even want to see wrestling usually. They want to see submissions, And I think, I really do believe what Eddie and Victor are doing with the rule set, with combat jiu-jitsu, with the little, details in regards to that competition that they're enforcing. They're really trying to get the best out of each match, the best out of each tournament. They're trying to see, who does have the best jiu-jitsu here, who's able to come in here in a dangerous rule set, and, with the added danger of strikes, and still do jiu-jitsu at a high level. So I really appreciate what they're doing, and it's cool. And I think it's just going to grow. Right now they're going on this worldwide tour. They just did Combat Jiu-Jitsu Mexico. They're going to be doing Combat Jiu-Jitsu Japan, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Brazil. And then I think every year they're also going to hold the Combat Jiu-Jitsu World Championships.
Is that something that you're excited to go back into next year, or are you going to take a year off or what?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Whenever they call, I'll be ready. I will have to defend the title, so next time, whenever they do the next 135-pound championship, I'll be the first seed. I'll be ready to defend for 4 matches. And yeah. I'm
so
excited.
Psychologically walking into one of those combat jiu-jitsu matches, is it different, or do you just kind of look at it all as like, hey, it's me and you and it is what it is, or you get kind of like fired up differently? Like what's that mindset like?
Yeah, it's a little different because you don't want to get badly hurt or whatnot, but to be honest, I'm not even worried about the strikes. I want my jiu-jitsu to be shown, and I also want to know the level that I'm at, so I don't think I don't go in there worrying about like, oh, I hope I don't get TKO'd or just like outstruck or something. Can
you get TKO'd in those?
Yeah. There's been a few TKOs where they're just like someone's mounted and they're just raining down palm strikes, and it's technically, they have an MMA ref and whatnot. So yeah, they'll call TKOs and whatnot if someone's basically just getting striked and punched.
Yeah, that must felt good with having Eddie put that belt around you there, winning Worlds, man.
Yeah, man, that was a special moment.
And who was reffing that? Was that Beltran?
Mike Beltran. Yeah. He's a cool guy, actually. Really, I like that guy. He's cool. Yeah, that whole experience was crazy. I felt like it was kind of a year in the making. Or maybe longer, because I had competed in the very first inaugural Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, and so it was the first one that Eddie had put on. The rule set was a little different. They were still like ironing out the kinks. And, I remember he was just like on Instagram, like, hey, we're doing combat jiu-jitsu. Like, we're looking for, people that have had experience in MMA or something. And both my brother and I were like, let's do this. Let's find a way to do this. So we're messaging him. We're trying to get like on the card. Eventually we get the call and we both get super fights on that card. And I think, so they did the tournament, but then they were doing super fights also. And I remember doing that. I had a good, fun match against one of Eddie's black belts. I ended up losing in overtime. But yeah, that was like the taste of combat jiu-jitsu. That was like, okay, this is kind of what it's like. And then it was just building from there, and then I got my foot in the door in Eddie Bravo's door, if you will. I had the opportunity to compete at an EBI after I did another Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds. I did the Jiu-Jitsu Overtime, which is like the one tournament they did just in overtime positions. And I think I had, I did 4 or 5 Eddie Bravo events. And so I kind of consider myself like a veteran in that field at that point, And then a year before Combat Jiu-Jitsu, the Bantamweights, a year before, I was in Combat Jiu-Jitsu, the featherweights. And my first match was against Richard Alarcon. And he was the champion at 35 at the time. And he was, wanting to take the 45-pound belt as well. And so my first match is against him, which was funny because I just kept thinking during that during training and during that camp, I guess, that I would be facing him first round. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be seated high. I think they're probably going to give me, the champion who's trying to get the next belt. I think they're going to give me him first round. And so in my head, I'm facing him. When I see my training partners, I put his face on them, and yeah, we ended up drawing each other first round, and it was a good match. It was good. People, watching that, people thought, Red kind of had more control. Red, as in Richard, his nickname is Red. People thought Richard had more control. He landed some takedowns. I thought I had more submission attempts overall. I felt like I did more of the jiu-jitsu in that match. But eventually we went to overtime, and I was down on escape time, and I think it was a top of the third, and I ended up securing an armbar in overtime, and he had an opportunity, and it was too little time. I was able to ride it out and get that victory over him, and that was a really big statement for me. For me, it was, okay, this is the level that I'm at. I can be a champion in this organization. I have to commit. I have to become obsessed. I have to get better. I have to do what it takes to get to that level, to stay at that level and to evolve. I ended up, losing my next match in that tournament, and yeah, there was a lot to work on, but I became obsessed in that year. I mean, I didn't care about doing anything but jiu-jitsu. I had always been doing jiu-jitsu, but a new level of obsession had hit me.
Well,
And
can I drill into this a little bit more? Like, I think about it from the standpoint, I was like, I love jujitsu. I got into it 5 or 6 years ago. I'm such an average Joe in the world of, like, I have a purple belt. I train hard. I watch videos. I try to learn new techniques. I try to bring the team up around me. Don't try to hurt anybody. Like, I'm a Tuesday and Thursday guy, sometimes Saturdays for open mat. That's
yeah,
a very different world of
yeah,
jujitsu than what it is that you do. And I'd love to hear, when you say I was doing it every day already, then I
yeah.
got more obsessed with it. Like, what does training look like for you? Like, and what are you focusing on? And how do you, like, are you training in a team with other people who are serious competitors like that? And then, like, how do you organize that? Because when I walk into a school, I just do whatever they tell me that I'm doing that day for the most part. And then when I roll, I'm working on a couple things upstairs. But, like, it's probably very different in what you do.
Yeah, I still go in, I take what we're learning, and I drill it. I try to, I always have kind of that white belt mentality. I want to learn. I want to know that, everyone has something to show. I think one of the biggest pieces to having, my mentality in this game was my brother. We're so close in age. We grew up on the mats, grew up having just like crazy wars in the garage together, like on our garage mats. And we always knew we were going to be, competitive, like compete, in tournaments and different combat events. And so, the mentality was there for a while. It was, I have to train harder than the next guy, and I've got to train harder than, my peers. And yeah, so when I'm training, when I'm, in the gym, it's very cerebral, I'm just focused on things I need to work on, but I'm focused on the game as a whole. Like at this point in jiu-jitsu, it's very easy for people to get comfortable. It's very easy for people to figure out what they're good at and stick with that. And I've been in jiu-jitsu a long time, so it would be easy for me to settle and just be like, I'm good at this, I'm going to lean into that. And that almost makes me angry, at myself, because I know, like, in order to be at the level that I think I can reach, I have to just obsess with the game as a whole, from top to bottom, whether it's, positional submissions, chaining jujitsu moves together, leg locks, upper body attacks, passing, defending, guard retention. Everything is always in my head, and, luckily right now with where I'm at, I've got a great instructor who's really kind of pushing my boundaries in terms of, the techniques that I can apply in competition. Just what I'm learning at this stage. Like I said, been doing it my whole life, but I feel like I'm learning the most right now. I feel like at this point I'm just like, jujitsu is infinity. Like it's endless. Like I'm never gonna like stop learning. Like there's too much coming in right now, and I'm just like, I think at this point I've just been more open to receiving it. I've let jujitsu like fully into my heart. I'm receiving it on as many levels as I can, and yeah, I'm super in love with the sport, super passionate about it, and so being obsessed on all of those levels is it's almost easy.
What a fascinating way to put that. That you're letting jujitsu into your heart just to flow through you.
Yeah,
Like you just show up and you have the energy for it and the focus for it, and like you're going to be walking away with new information, getting better every day. Like
yeah,
that's a really cool way to think about it. I mean, I think we'd all be better off if we let things flow through our heart a little bit more.
yeah. I think so, man. I think having something, like jujitsu or any sort of practice that you have, but having an ability to, be present and in the moment can benefit people immensely. And I feel like what I found in jujitsu is when I'm on the mat, when I'm drilling with my peers, when I'm rolling, there's just nothing else in the world going on. I'm just there and I'm like absorbing that energy. I'm absorbing what's going on there, and then you reap the benefits of that outside when you step off the mats and when you kind of step back into reality. Um, but it feels good, it feels good to be present in that moment. Nothing else in the world is going on. We're here and we're just like doing what we love.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what, I can tell getting to spend a little bit more time chatting with you. You seem to be a pretty positive person. Like where's that energy and positivity come from, man? Is that something that you had to like grow into and mature into, or have you kind of always been that way? It's just part of the way that you grew up? I'd love to understand more.
Yeah, I think I was always like an optimistic person. Sometimes too optimistic, maybe. uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I think it all stems from just having like passionate um parents, I guess. They were very passionate about their crafts. My mom, uh she was very passionate about yoga. She taught yoga for a long time, but also she's just like a very high level chef and culinary expert, I would say. And I saw the way that she just was so passionate about cooking and the dishes that she prepared, and she like always talked about how she did prepare them with love. Like she loved what she did, and she just like always like put love into every dish. And my dad also is a very passionate jujitsu instructor and competitor for a while, and just and passionate about teaching my brother and I, the art that he loved so much that changed his life, that changed the course of his life completely. Um, yeah, so I think growing up with parents that were like passionate about their crafts, about what they were doing, they were positive in that regard. They were like they were in love with what they did. They were positive in regards to what they were pursuing, and I think I just absorbed that. I absorbed that. I tried to um, live that same way, just like be a passionate, like kind of hardworking, hard-nosed kid, and I was like a little rebellious too, but I think I was rebellious because I was just like creative and just wanted to step outside of the box, step outside of the comfort zone. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely attribute that
Yeah.
mentality to my parents for sure, for kind of instilling that passion and that drive, like pursue what you want to do, what you want to become. And like you said at the beginning, we always wanted to do it with an open mind, of course, and an open heart, and not try to hurt anyone along the way.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, man. Hey, I wasn't going to ask you this, but some news just popped up. I mentioned, or you mentioned that you're at a Henzo school. So I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to ask you. I think you know where I'm going with
Oh
this.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
one of the greatest competition, the greatest, in my opinion, competition grouping of individuals, Danaher Death Squad just recently announced a kind of a split there. And obviously that's under John Danaher, under the Henzo Gracie umbrella. Like, what's kind of your perspective on this? Or like hearing that news, is it kind of a surprise? Is it just kind of like it is what it is? Like, I'd love to hear what the whispers are doing in the Henzo camps.
Right. Yeah. In the Henza community, yeah, I guess we got a little bit of an in. I don't know. Max actually, my head instructor now, he came from New York. He taught alongside Danaher for like 10 years, got his black belt from Henzo Gracie himself. So he's like, he knows more about it. I don't know if he stays in like super in touch, like really well with John, but it sounds like exactly what it is. Like, it sounds like they were like kind of already an unofficial team. Like they were saying like, oh, we're like, we're breaking up. We're not an official team anymore. But I always thought like DDS was unofficial in a way. Like they were just like, these like jujitsu bandits, kind of jujitsu rebels.
Just moving to Puerto Rico and
Right. Yeah.
blowing up social
honestly,
media and talking shit. And
exactly. I think it probably just came down to like, all right, well, yeah, we're the DDS, but not everyone wants to live in Puerto Rico. Not everyone, wants to stay there and do that. And when you get to a certain level, like I'm sure even with a guy like John, like you get to a certain level where you're like, man, like John is the best, but I kind of want to go explore. Like I kind of wanted to go do other things. I heard like Gordon and John are always going to stay together, which is cool.
yeah, I
That's
saw
awesome.
that post today. That was
Yeah.
Gordo posted that today.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I saw this meme. It was like like someone was saying, did you hear DDS like broke up? And the guy was like, yes, very sad. Anyways, and that's like how I feel. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of a bummer, but I mean, we're still gonna see all of those guys compete. It's not like any of those guys are retiring. They might not fly the DDS flag, but for me, like I just want to watch those guys compete. They're awesome. So.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, going back into the world of jujitsu, like there's probably a lot of folks out there who are considering making a jump from being kind of a amateur to getting into this more professional space that you've been in. What would you say? Like, what does that bridge look like? What are the kinds of things that you have to be doing, or attributes that you have to bring into your life in order to start making this jump?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like a real natural transition. People don't even expect to be moving into like pro level circuits, but you compete enough and you train long enough and you get to a level where you're like, oh, I'm pretty good, I'm getting to that next level. And I think sometimes it's just a natural transition. And then it depends on your mentality. What is your mentality in jiu-jitsu? Is it, I just want to do this. I enjoy this. I like having the ability to defend myself. I like learning an art, because the end of the day, like jujitsu is an art. It's a martial art. We get to learn it. We get to let that discipline affect us in any positive way we see fit, right? You don't have to do competition. You don't have to be a competitor. I mean, jujitsu in and of itself is a beautiful art that we can practice and just enjoy in that regard. But yeah, I think for people that are, wanting to make that switch, I think whether you go on and on to be, high level, and then you realize your goal is, oh, I want to be one of the best in the world, it really depends on what your level of obsession is in the game overall. Because I think people can compete for a long time. They can do competitions all over the world, but sometimes they'll never reach that top tier level because one, they like competing, but there's a different mentality that, occurs when you decide, I want to be the best in the world. Like I want to be, a world champion. I want to have a belt, or something. And I think ultimately what that is it's your obsession. It's, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, in order to get to that level. I think that's true to any craft. I mean, we can do something at a high level for a long time. We can do something and become really good at it. But once you decide to get into that, like, top tier competition circuit, it's really about, who's putting the most hours in,
Yeah.
not just like physically, but mentally, who's putting the most mental reps in here, who's thinking about this, who's going over their moves in their head, their concepts of jiu-jitsu in their head. Um, but yeah, I don't have any advice to give other than like,
Get obsessed. Like if you're not
yeah,
obsessed, it's probably not going to pan out.
yeah, just let like, I think jiu-jitsu is one of those things where, one, if you have a good instructor, and two, if you have the passion for it, just like let it sink its roots into you. Let jiu-jitsu just like root into you, and man, you're gonna like develop at a, a, a fast pace. I didn't compete all that much. Like I didn't compete as regularly as like a lot of my peers and my competitors, but I did have my brother. I was always in the gym. I was always training. I was always having these like gym wars and just crazy sparring rounds. And, for me, like that was enough. I didn't need to go compete all the time.
Mm.
And I feel like a part of that is, people want to get those like those nerves out, the jitters out, the jitters of competition, so I'm just going to do it a lot and it's going to become comfortable, you know. But I think, if you were putting yourself in that mentality, like in training a lot, and just visualizing as much as you can, in that regard, then you can get there as well. I don't think you got to compete every
Yeah.
weekend, or even every month. Just stay consistent with the art.
I love it. I also want to pivot back to like kind of preparation for competitions for a second. I missed a question here that I wanted to touch on. So my eyes got opened pretty wide by I'm sure you're familiar with him, Christian Woodmansey. He's
Yeah.
a Atos black belt, the absolute savage. I used to go out to Philadelphia every now and then for work, and I certainly would drop into his school. He's come on the podcast as well, and he was doing a seminar here in Boise, and I went to it, and he took us through his his system, right? For kind of positionally where he's trying to trap people into, and like what he wants to do, and like where his A, B, C, and like where he's going to go around that. Like,
Yeah.
do you have a system like that where it's like you're going in, you have basically everything kind of mapped out in your head, if then statements, or is it more like you're like flowing to a position and then you start the system? I don't even really understand how that stuff kind of works in competition, because to me, jujitsu is just a lot of, I can get to the spots I
Yeah,
want to
like
sometime.
reactions.
Yeah, a lot of reactions, especially at your level too. Like black belts getting in there are not just going to give away the position that you want to start from, right? So like, what's that philosophy on systems around competition?
Yeah. I think personally, I've been learning a lot more about this on a conceptual level. I think, the idea of like systems in jiu-jitsu is, chaining a certain, line of moves together based off our opponent's reactions, which we kind of predict, is going to happen, because it's almost like what needs to happen, right? Like what they need to do in order to defend. So, we talk about like just the simple concept of being in mount, and what sort of submission based system we can apply here. So we know, in mount we've got like, first things first, we got a base, and we can pretty much expect that our partner is going to try to get their knees and elbows inside, right? And so what's our next step, right? Like let's start to isolate an arm, right? So we do like a cross face underhook, we isolate. Okay, so now now we're kind of like gaining control here. We're taking advantage of this system, this concept in jiu-jitsu. So it's like, I think the systems are basically, we start with a position, and then we go, we take, what's our next objective, what's our primary objective, and maybe like all the goals that we need to accomplish in order to get to our primary objective.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
I think,
I haven't, that switch hasn't completely come on for me yet. Because like my primary objective is like get to side control, but like all the little steps between
right.
the two of like isolate this and this way, like and
Yeah,
really checking off that list, like that level of detail has got to be immense because jujitsu's infinite possibilities.
it is. Yeah, it is. But the reactions that we're given are, we can predict those. We can predict the reactions that our opponents are going to give us, um, and that's just experience. That's just experience in being in the position and looking at it from a coach's perspective, and like, okay, what does the opponent have to do, right, to get out from underneath the person's mount? That there's certain things that they have to accomplish. Um, and so from there, we can start to build the offense. We can, like I said, we can figure out what our primary objective is. It's like, okay, I need to isolate the arm and the head, and then I need to expose his back and get to the back. All right, but what do I need to do before? Well, first things first, I need to base out, because I know my opponent's going to try to like bump and roll or something, or bring their knees together. So I need to base out, and then I need to isolate an elbow, because if they can't bring their elbow and knee together, and they're not gonna get to their primary objective, which is retaining guard. That's their initial objective. Their primary objective of the roll might be to submit me, but their initial objective right now is to regain guard, or sweep me. So yeah, I think lately, I've been thinking about, okay, what's my primary objective, and what are the goals that I have to accomplish to get there.
Yeah.
And I see now, as a black belt, you kind of talking about Christian Woodmansey, him talking about his system and how he goes through steps 1, 2, 3, or ABC. I'm seeing it, a lot now, because, up until recently, my jujitsu has it's just been me, it's been a part of me. And being more involved as an instructor, like I realize I have like knowledge that I don't even know about, because I don't like talk about it, I just do it. So
Yeah.
when people ask me a question, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this is like, you're going to be here, this is the grip you need. And I'm like kind of teaching myself at the same time. I'm like, oh wow, like it's just weird, because like I never instructed all of it, but I've been doing it for so long. And now with like a more involved position as an instructor, yeah, those systems are there. I see, just like in wrestling, how you want to chain certain moves together in jiu-jitsu. I'm sure you know a very simple one where you go triangle, they posture up, so you go omoplata.
Yep.
They roll, so you go side control.
Yep.
And that's like a chain system in jiu-jitsu. We can kind of predict what's going to happen if we go triangle, they posture, we go omoplata, they roll, we hit side control. So
Well,
yeah, and I think it's like that. We just kind of develop it on higher levels and so on.
so they say a lot of black belts I've talked to say this: once you receive your black belt, you are now ready to learn. Right? You've heard that in martial arts and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. What's your favorite position, or like what are you working on? What are you learning right now? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I think being with Max now, and recently we've been diving our recently I have been diving just more into the leg entanglement game, the lower body attacks, um, and just the vastness that's there, the just the intermingling of the legs and how we can configure them in so many different ways, and so many different possibilities that are there. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Even just yesterday, like when because I really feel like at this point I'm really starting to understand. I know where my feet need to be, I know where my knee line needs to be, I know where theirs needs to be. When I'm chaining these moves together, like it's all starting to make sense. And even yesterday, like he showed something that was just so simple, and I'm like like what? fuck.
I know, right?
And
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, how do I not see this, you know? And yeah, so I mean, it really is infinite. I think right now, you know, I have a strong focus on you know, my bottom game, the leg entanglement game, and just being at the highest level there. You know, I really want to be at the highest level in leg attacks, arm attacks, you know, passing, guard retention. You know, so I try to focus on all of those. You know, when I'm rolling and when I'm drilling, I have my own kind of things that I want to drill and understand. But yeah, you know, when Max is teaching, and especially when it's in, you know, in regards to lower body attacks, you know, I'm full attention. I'm like, you know, this is something I need. You know, I want this at the highest level. I want this you know, this level up, you know, on my character sheet. You know, I want this level up.
Yeah.
So
What's your favorite submission? Like what's the one that like fills your cup that like when you get it,
oh
you're just like, yes.
oh, arm bars for sure. Arm bars. You know, like where it's just one limb, isolating one limb on an entire body, and it's like it's not even that big, you know. It's like it's this small arm, and if I can, like, you know, make a person tap or quit by, you know, locking down their arm, securing a submission, you know, it's very satisfying, you know. And there's so many uh amazing ways we can get to the armbar, whether it's just like very like positional slow dominance, and we just lock it in, and all I have to do is just inch back, and they know, they're like, okay, yeah, that's it, it's over. Or it's just like we jump into it, we can get to a flying armbar, or it can be very athletic as well. And I guess that's kind of with any submission, but yeah, no, when I my arm bars are like, that's my favorite, you know. uh,
I love it, man.
yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, well, you know, as we're coming up on time here, what do you have coming up that you're excited about from a competition standpoint? And then also, where can folks find you on social media or get in touch with you to potentially train if they're in the Reno area?
Yes. So you can always find me on Instagram. It's just my first name underscore last name, Elias underscore Anderson. Yeah, I'm in Reno pretty much full time, unless I'm traveling to compete or, you know, traveling to train every now and then. But for the most part, you know, Henzo Gracie Reno is my home. Um, yeah, I'll be there. I mean,
The competition's coming up.
yeah, competitions. Emerald City Invitational is November August 7th. It's 2 weeks from last Saturday, so I think that's August 7th. Live on Flow Grappling. Winner takes home 10K. It's a big, you know, event that Flow Grappling, you know, puts on, or streams rather. The guys over at Emerald, I hear they put on a great tournament. I've seen the last one; it looked awesome. I'm excited to be competing on it, competing against, you know, a bunch of the top 10 ranked guys. I think I'm on that level. You know, I think this is, you know, my goal in jiu-jitsu is to be an ADCC and eventually be an ADCC champion. So, you know, this is a great opportunity to show people the level that I'm at, and, you know, the level of obsession I have for my craft, which is jiu-jitsu, and
I
I'm
love it,
excited.
brother. I love it, brother. Well, I can't wish you more luck in life and all the things that you're doing, man. Like I'm so excited for getting the opportunity to spend some time with you today. Excited to watch how those competitions go, and looking forward to touching base with you next time I'm in Reno, brother. Thanks for sharing some time with me on the podcast today.
Oh man, thank you so much, Jake. It was awesome. Great talking with you, and I'm super glad we crossed paths. It was awesome, and I'm sure I'll see you again. My girlfriend, she goes to school at Boise State University, so you know, when she's home right now, she's in town now, but when she's there, you know, I'll visit and I'll stop by, and we'll definitely get some more training in together for
All
sure.
right, sounds good, my man. I need a good ass whooping every now and then for sure. All right, take care.
All right, thanks, man.